So, as the pandemic subsides, which regions are faring better on their recovery? We can talk now to Klisman Murati, who's Chief Executive of World Affairs research company Pareto Economics and the creator of the Global Power Index, a tool that can be used to better understand how economies are recovering from COVID. So, welcome to the programme, Klisman. On that theme, if you were to pick a sort of best and worst performer when it comes to the recovery from COVID, who would they be?
You can't really separate the impact of COVID to the impact of the Ukraine crisis right now. So if we were to see in isolation what COVID would have done, that question doesn't really happen in the same way. But what I can say is that all regions have suffered greatly by both the impact of COVID and the Ukraine crisis. But a couple of things come to mind when you're trying to figure this out. Firstly, if you see remittances and the rise of remittances globally, this could be due to many different factors. It could be, for example, number one, that simply more money has been made by immigrants and they're sending it away, or more people are leaving their home countries and moving to other more prosperous parts of the world, which is why there is an increase in remittances. And we see this across the board. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out on. And also, secondly, if you look at the trade finance gap in a number of regions, including Africa and South America, for example, it's only rising. And the more this rises, the less businesses in these parts of the world are able to be funded, and less growth happens in these parts of the world. And this compounding effect is impacting every society, and some are doing better and some are doing worse than others, but it's still a struggle no matter where you live.
Zoning in on COVID, Klisman, does your analysis take into account the severity, the duration of lockdown measures which were in place to varying degrees in different countries? And how has that affected their subsequent recovery?
Well, the thing about COVID, which is unique in terms of the economic impact globally, is that everywhere around the world we saw similar reactions. So a lockdown, restricted movement, restricted business activity, which led central banks across the world to lowering rates to almost stimulate the economy. But the problem wasn't a lack of demand, but it was simply a physical lockdown of the economy. And so what the Global Power Index tries to do is tries to seize the robustness of economies by looking at the world through the lens of power. And the more powerful a country is, meaning the more it has the ability to secure their own interests, which is how we define power, the better able they would be in coming out of this crisis. And what we notice is that the three top countries in the Global Power Index is number one, the USA, number two, Russia, and number three, China, and number four, Singapore. People typically focus on the top three, but these three economies, again, you can't separate COVID from the Ukraine crisis, but certainly a physical lockdown of economies has not only slowed things down, but has really changed supply chains and made it much more difficult for a recovery to happen wholesale. Because when it comes time to COVID, it's a biological impact which has impacted the world, and financiers typically don't understand that as much as they understand the economic situation, which makes it much more difficult to respond to.
Okay, Klisman Murati from Pareto Economics, thank you very much for joining us with your thoughts today.